Hi.
Hi, everybody. This is Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpit Queen. I'm reporting live from my little cabin in the woods, Murphy's Law, here in East Texas. And we have tonight as our very special guest, my friend Karen Essig, who is a wonderful, wonderful novelist. And she is calling in from, are you in California?
I am. I'm in Los Angeles right now.
She's in Los Angeles. And joining us also tonight is Jeffrey Dale Lofton, who's up in Washington, D.C. Is that where you are?
I am.
Yay. Well, we're just all across the United States tonight, and happy Valentine's Day for all of you coming to this event. You know, I thought about changing this, Karen, but I thought, who better to have Valentine's Day with than Karen Essig? Because Karen and I met some time ago. Gosh, I don't even remember what year it was, but it was at the Southern Festival for the Books. I had picked your book, Dracula in Love, and I was going to pick you up in Nashville and bring you back to East Texas for the book club meeting, and we'd never met. And I was trying to think of the author that I'd gone to hear speak that wrote this fabulous book, and I cannot think of his name. Do you remember the author you were with?
Yes, because I co-authored a book with him years ago. It was James L. Swanson.
My gosh, that was my author friend Michael Morris had taken me to that meeting. He goes, I know it sounds very dry, but I assure you it is going to. I was on the edge of my seat for that whole presentation, and walking out, I told him how much I liked it, and you were walking with him, but I didn't recognize you. And I said, oh, I don't know how it came back. And you go, Kathy, I'm Karen Essig. And that's how we met. And then the rest of the story is she rode home with me. And was I driving the damn minivan back then, Karen?
Yeah, you were. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I decided we were going to stop in Memphis and stay with my artist friend, Elisa Free, and her husband, Mark. And it was your birthday.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
And she had written Dracula in Love. And if you have not read this book, Jeffrey, you've got to read all of her books. But this one is the first one that got my attention. And we got to talking about Dark Shadows and how we both enjoyed it. I mean, it was a very popular horror soap.
Childhood obsession.
It was.
I would ride my bike home, race home from school at 3:00 in the afternoon to see Dark Shadows reruns. It was so, have been vampire obsessed most of my life. Grew up on Anne Rice, and so
absolutely, me too. I loved Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire, but all of her books. But what was funny about it was that, first of all, it was your birthday. And second of all, that somebody actually knew what Dark Shadows was, because most of the authors I pick are so much younger than me, they don't remember it. But that show was so popular that I was a lifeguard out at the country club in high school. And at 3:00, we would close the pool. And all the kids would go into the clubhouse, and we watched for a half an hour Dark Shadows, shivering in the air conditioning in our towels, watching this. And then at 3:30, we go back out to the pool. But I don't think those types of things are done anymore, but it was very memorable to me. And then when we went to Jefferson, we did a very unique book signing book club event, because I got the local theater troupe actors to portray Karen's characters in her book. And it was a live reading, and we had this wonderful meal. Do you remember, Karen?
I remember the whole thing really well. You did my hair for the event. First of all, we all dressed in Gothic or Victorian costume. It was hugely well attended. I could not believe. I mean, if you had seen how many people were there, you would think you were in Jefferson was a big city.
Yeah.
But everybody was so interested in participating. And I did my book tour, which was suggested by a friend, was to do a 20-minute play based on the book. And then everywhere I went, people from the community perform the play with me reading the narration. And it was, I mean, book tours can be so dry and terrible. You know, you show up at a bookstore and you're going to read from your little novel, and there are just five ladies there or two, and they say, we'll buy it, we'll get it at the library. Nice meeting you. And but this book tour was just fabulous for that reason, because the community was automatically involved. And man, Kathy put on a real event for me that night. It was a big dinner. Everybody looked flawless in their Victorian outfits. It was just so cool.
You know, that was the beginning. My daughter did the young woman.
Yes, Elena was Mina, or Mina
Yeah,
Harker.
she was, and she's still acting. She just was in Cabaret in Dallas. So
Oh, wow.
she's
She
still
was
doing it.
very good.
So anyway, it was a wonderful night and everybody had so much fun. But the thing about Jefferson was we had 5 theater groups, and we have some reason to dress up any time of the month. Right now it's Mardi Gras, so everybody's dressing Mardi Gras. But it was so much fun. And I'm telling you, this book, I actually had to bring out my pillow. I don't have the original art, but I painted the Mona Lisa.
Oh, how
And
cool.
this is a huge painting. When I graduated from college, I used to go to Italy with my friend Stephanie Chance, and I'd spent all my money finishing my art degree. So I painted this rendition of Mona Lisa, and you can't see it in this pillow, but she has on a hat that I actually made by English milliner, taught us how to make fascinators, so I made her my own. But it's called Dreaming of Italy. But I love this book so much because this time is, I get so lost in that era, and learning about all the famous authors from Titian to Leonardo, everybody that you brought into the picture. What is amazing about your book, Leonardo Swan, too, is you have a way of researching that the facts, but you turn it into such a page-turning book, because I couldn't put this book down when I got it. I'm frantically trying to find time to read all of your books because they're all amazing. They're all so different. And, but this book, it just ties into everything that I'm doing right now, which is painting, painting, painting. So, what we're going to do first is we're going to talk a little bit about your backstory, Karen. You're originally from New Orleans, right?
That's true. And I also inherited a house there. I've lived all over the place. So I've lived in Los Angeles for a long time. I lived in London for 7 years. I lived in Paris, and I inherited a house in New Orleans in 2019. And so I'm kind of, spending a lot more time there again.
Oh, I want to come and visit. Now, where is your house located in New Orleans?
It's right outside of Orleans Parish in a suburb called Metairie. I'm about, a 10-minute drive to the
I know
middle of the city.
exactly where it is. I went to the premiere of Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood in Metairie.
Okay. Yes,
So
we have big Barnes and Noble.
Of my Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys down to, we were invited by Katie, what's her name? Callie Couric, who was the director of the film, to go to that. And I love New Orleans. I'm trying to figure out how I can sneak away to go to the Tennessee Williams. Do you go down for that, Karen?
I will this year. I haven't gone every time, but I will this year.
Great. Are you going to be presenting at the festival?
To be decided.
Oh gosh, if there's anything I can do to get you on the program, I've keynoted there. I love it. It is one of my favorite festivals in the world. Jeffrey, you would adore it because it's theater, it's books, it's music, it's New Orleans. It's the best of everything. And it's the only other festival that I love compared to my own. I really like my own festival.
Yeah, we do know how to throw a good party in New Orleans, that's for sure.
That's so cool. Well, I'm so glad you're going to be down there. I'm actually going to be traveling to Covington. Do you know where that is?
My parents had a summer home there my whole life
Yep, right on the Lake
on the lake.
Pontchartrain.
Yep.
Yeah, my good friends moved from Jefferson back there, and I'm going to Atlanta for a book signing, and I'm staying there halfway and then coming back and staying with them. But two of my good friends, Joanne and Paul Tidwell. So all these connections. So the story is you were raised in New Orleans, you've traveled all over the world, you have one daughter, right? Correct, one daughter.
One daughter.
And you now live in Los Angeles. Do you still live the same place that you lived when the last time I was there?
No. I'm kind of right now I'm living in a friend's house.
Okay.
I'm
All right.
very, 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 very lucky in friends. And one of my friends has a beautiful home in Beverly Hills that's fully furnished, and he doesn't live here. So he
Oh
invited
my
me
goodness.
to live in it as long as I want. And so yeah, I'm very, very, very lucky. So like a fool, I sold my home here because I thought that I was going to die in London. I thought I was just going to become a citizen and stay there because I was madly in love with the city and with all the people there and the lifestyle and the theater and the
I
museums. And
love it there. I love
it
it.
was
Yeah.
amazing. But we have this little thing called family. And,
Yes.
my mom was, my stepfather died, and my mom was already in her 80s. And my daughter also has ongoing health issues. And so I just thought, it just hit me like, I can't be British. I have people I love who are depending on me. And so
Right.
so I came back to the States, and I only miss London every day, but no more than that, just every day.
Ah,
So I'm trying to cope with that. But so now I'm kind of back and forth between Los Angeles and New Orleans.
that's great. Well, if you need a place to stay halfway, you can
True
come
that.
stay at my little cabin in the woods, which is just getting a new revamp because of all the trees that keep falling on me. I have the tree people coming to cut down 9 100-foot oaks and pine tomorrow.
Oh,
So I'm a
wow.
little nervous. A little nervous.
Yeah.
But you're always welcome to stay with me. And I
Thank you.
know, do you still take the train?
From
Or you
no,
fly?
I'm a flyer.
Well, last time, I think from my house, didn't I take you to the train station in
Oh,
Marshall?
yeah, because we were in Jefferson, and I
Yeah.
think I took the train to New Orleans.
Oh, did you?
I
Okay.
think I did.
Well,
Yeah.
there is a lovely train station 15 minutes from my house in Mineola, Texas.
Oh,
And it
wow.
is
Okay.
really, it's a museum, it's historical, and it's in a fabulous little town, and it's 15 minutes from me.
Well,
So
that sounds
just keep
like
that in
fun.
mind. So we're going to go back to the book. So you've written how many books? That's a lot.
Six. My first book was co-authored with James Swanson, who we were just talking about. We co-authored a biography of Betty Page and the great
That's
50s pinup.
right.
And we're the only authors that Betty ever cooperated with. So
I
uh,
think I have that book.
I
I
think
know
you
I
do.
have that book. I
I think
do.
you
I
do.
do have that book. It was fascinating. She
Yeah.
she was an interesting character.
Oh,
And
very interesting person. So that
yeah.
was my first novel. And then since then, I've published 5 novels of historical fiction, and I just finished another one. So,
Oh, well, we're going to end with that one because I want to hear all about it.
okay.
I can't wait to read it. I'm hoping that everybody, we have so many new pulpit queens and timber guys. The guys are joining in leaps and bounds, aren't you, Jeffrey? You're really joining. And we are growing so big that I see since COVID a surge, so to speak. What
Uh,
everybody else had happen what during COVID is they stopped having their book club. Well, I started doing online book club and doing this
yeah.
blog. And we have grown because it's even if you miss the meetings, Karen, you can go to my Pulpit Queen channel and you can watch them or you can share. You'll be able to share this with all your fan base, all your
Yeah, I
family
like
and
that.
friends, and it's really fun. And because to me, reading is the best entertainment in the world.
Of course.
And this is, in fact, Jeffrey, turn your mute button off. Tell Karen what you wore to the our ball, over the moon ball this year.
I was actually Kathy's court jester.
Yes. It's a fabulous costume. And Jeffrey, I'm not even going to tell you all the comments that people told me from the backside, because you were getting lots of pictures at that as the court jester. And he was there with my dear friend Robert Gwaltney, who had this beautiful suit on. And for the year before, he wore it when he was the King of Versailles. And I was Marie Antoinette.
Wow.
So we had a wonderful
Oh,
time.
man.
And we've got to get you to one of our girlfriend weekends. I know you couldn't come this year, but maybe next year, because your book will be up for the International Book of the Year.
Oh, fantastic.
All of our authors vote. I have this done starting about October. I have everybody vote for their book of the year, international book of the year, bonus book of the year, children's book of the year, teen book of the year. And we have a Sunday night awards celebration. And it was so fun this year. It was so fun. So
So much fun.
so the more you engage, the more people are going to hear about you and your book. But
That's fantastic.
so you wrote the Betty Page book, and then next was, what was was it Dracula?
Two-volume novel about the life of Cleopatra from her early age until her death at 39.
I have not read those. I've got to read those for sure. And then was it Dracula in Love?
No, then came Leonardo Swans. And then after Leonardo Swans, I wrote a book called Stealing Athena. That's about the whole
I have that one.
I studied the ancient world on a graduate level, and that's really, I write about a lot of different things, but I really love the ancient world. And Stealing Athena is about, if you know about the Elgin marbles or the Parthenon sculptures, those are those controversial statues that were taken from the Parthenon by Lord Elgin and put in the British Museum.
Oh, yes.
In like 1700, and the Greeks have been trying to get them back for a couple of hundred years, and they're always in talks about it. The Greeks have built a beautiful new museum to take the marbles, and frankly, I don't think the British are going to give them back. Just because I have mixed feelings about it. Like, what if
I do too?
What if everybody has to return objects to where they came from? First of all, the United States is going to be screwed because our history began not that long ago. So
well, we plundered everybody. So
yeah,
absolutely. And not all of us are able to travel to all these places. So to have things that are in the States, but I guess, and it's so hard to transport those things.
Well,
and it's so dangerous, because if something happens, these things are priceless. So
well, the Elgin marbles sank on the way to London originally. One of the ships carrying them sank to the bottom of the sea, and only because Lady Elgin had so much money, she actually hired massive diving crews to resurrect these thousands and thousands of pounds of marble. So they sank once. Nobody wants them to sink again. But that's why I think they're not going back, because frankly, who's going to pay for that? The British economy is not amazing right now, and neither is the Greek economy. So whoever,
they've been in trouble for some time.
I can't imagine the care and the money it would take to get those back to Greece.
We're kind of in a position now where we need to set the precedent. You can't, it's hard to go back and rewrite history and rewrite all these things. But from now on, nothing goes out, but unfortunately, this happened. So yeah, well, I didn't realize Leonardo Swans came before Dracula in Love.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, what amazes me is, it's kind of an intentional pun, but the book Leonardo Swans constantly has its own renaissance because people keep finding it. It's my highest selling book by far. It's published in 30 languages. Um, I just was contacted out of sort of nowhere by a big book club in Los Angeles. They meet at the Los Angeles Country
I saw
Club.
that. Yeah.
And I gave a talk there last week about Dracula in Love and I mean about Leonardo Swans, and all those people had been to Milan and seen The Last Supper, and they were all so engaged. It was so much fun. And you had mentioned you've got more timber guys now. I was surprised that all the men had read Leonardo Swans and really responded to it. Because my books are so heavily marketed to female readers. But it's nice, it was just great that that the guys seem to really enjoy it too, and we're super engaged in the conversation. So Leonardo Swans continues to just be discovered and rediscovered, and I'm just so honored by that.
Well, I mean, look at this cover. It's visually just lush. It's just absolutely. I just want to set it out so everybody can
Yeah.
see it. So I'm thrilled about that. Well, I that surprised me. I guess, I read so many books, it does not
Yes.
matter to me when they come out.
Kathy, I'm amazed you remember my name. You meet so many authors and read so
I
many
will
books.
never forget you, Karen. We did Graceland together.
We went to
okay?
Graceland together.
We went
That's right.
I made a little detour. I said, "Have you ever been to Graceland?" As we were driving home, she goes, "No." I go, "Guess what? I'm going to take you." Every time I go through Memphis, I take somebody. I took my youth group. I've taken my Girl Scouts. I've been there with my friend Elisa. I've taken family members. It's just, and I just heard they just sold his private jet in Las Vegas to somebody, and I don't know who.
Really
But now look at the Elvis film. I mean, my goodness,
Yeah.
Austin Butler is just. Have you seen
Astonishing.
it? Have you seen the film?
Of course, I'm a big Elvis fan, and I'm so happy that another generation of people have discovered. I mean, Elvis's music is great, and I didn't appreciate it growing up because it was kind of my parents' generation. You have to hate everything your parents like, but I discovered it in my, say, 20s, and I was like, gosh, Elvis is amazing. And so I'm really happy that all these new people, the new people, are getting into Elvis too.
Well, it's just like a good book. If you write, this book is timeless. I mean, it's about history. And I was an art history minor. I got my BFA in fine arts, but I was an art history minor. And I know how much you research this book. I mean, even at the end, going back in and giving the little synopsis on all the characters. And I found out so many things I did not know. How long did it take you to research? How long does it take
Well,
you? What's the process?
So I'll tell you the story. This gift, this book was a gift from the divine. You can call the divine whatever you want, but this book was. It took me 7 years to write Cleopatra, but this book was just like given to me. I was lying. This is a true story, and I was lying on the floor of my office, and I wasn't thinking about a book. I should write another book. I was at the time under contract to write something for Sony Pictures, and I saw this book on my shelf about Leonardo that I had bought years and years and years ago. And I pulled it off the shelf and I started thumbing through it and thinking, wow, these women he painted are just amazing. They have such a great story. Maybe there's a book in it, who knows? And then I closed the book and went back to thinking about my screenplay. And I swear to you, that night, a friend that I talk to maybe once a year, it's a friend from high school, he called me and said, my brother and I are going to northern Italy, and we thought it would be fun to ask you to come with us.
Oh my gosh.
This is a pal from high school. We've never dated. I've never traveled with him. he calls me maybe once a year, or we have a drink in New Orleans or something. It was just so random. And so I thought, of course I'm coming. Yes, sign me up. So I went, and I got there earlier because, I felt like they didn't need to come on a research trip for me. So I went to Milan, and I went to see the Last Supper, and and everybody left. You can only go in these little small groups, and everybody looked at the Last Supper. You know how they do. It's like, oh, there it is. And then they leave. And I was standing there, and I turned around, and there's this massive mural on the other side of the room, and it's a giant cluttered crucifixion scene. And I was educated by Dominican nuns, so in the corner of this massive mural, I saw all these Dominican nuns, and that kind of drew my attention. And so I went to the corner, and there was this ghostly figure in prayer in the corner in front of the Dominican nuns, and I thought, who could that be? So I asked in the bookstore, who is that ghostly figure in the crucifixion next to the Dominican nuns? And they said, oh, that's Duchess Beatrice d'Este. She was one of Leonardo's patrons, and she was married to the Duke of Milan, and she's from this interesting family. And I remembered, oh, the Este sisters, those are the ones I was reading about in that Leonardo book. Then I thought, okay, I got obsessed, as one does. And they told me that all the information about the Este sisters and Beatrice would be in the Trabulsian library next door to the Castello. But unfortunately, they said it's closed for renovations, so you can't get in. So I went to the Castello, and I just had this feeling like, closed, really? I don't know. So I go bang on the door, nothing, bang on the door. And this really annoyed librarian comes out and says, can't you see we're closed? And so I asked her in my very sad Italian, I told her I was an American novelist, romanziere. And I wanted, information about Duchess Beatrice. And she said to me in Italian, well, sorry, no one here speaks English. And I said, because I just had a feeling, I said, en fait, est-ce qu'il y a quelqu'un ici qui parle français? Peut-être. And then I had her. She was like, okay, oui, je parle français. Entrez-vous. And so
wow,
I got in there, and they started bringing me all of this amazing stuff, these beautiful miniatures of Beatrice with her children that they said no one had asked to see ever in, decades. And they gave me a sort of bibliography of books I should look up about the Este sisters and about the period. And I just felt like I was like, I have struck pay dirt. I am going to write this book. And I went home, and I just, I knew a lot about the Renaissance. I mean, when I started Cleopatra, I was just like a schoolgirl about the ancient world. I actually went to graduate school to learn more about Cleopatra, but I knew quite a bit about Leonardo and the Renaissance. So the research wasn't as overwhelming. But again, it was this massive gift. Every time I needed information, I felt like it fell right into my hands. And so this book did, my other books took all of them took a very long time, but this book actually took me less than a year, which is
wow.
Completely amazing, completely amazing.
And it's of all the books, it's the one that's selling the most for the
Oh my gosh, massively. Yes. I mean, it was a runaway bestseller in Italy. And it was on all the lists here in the US. So, I mean, and people keep finding it. So I'm very, very honored about all of that.
Well, you were a bit ahead of your time because now it is like in museums. I go to the Dallas Museum of Art a lot and other museums. It seems like that almost in every century, they're now discovering and doing shows on women
Mhm.
that were masters that we never even heard of. I went to one
Yeah.
in Dallas that was on an impressionistic painter that was never heard of her.
Yeah.
And what you were ahead of your time. But I remember one thing in one of my art history classes that I was told, and I hope this is true. I mean, don't hope it's true. Not, I'm pretty sure it's true. But they said that women in art really weren't recognized until the 1970s.
I think that I do know that's true. I mean, from all my studies, that is absolutely true. That's when, yeah.
That just blows my mind because we think about all these, I wonder about what we've missed. And that's why I like to pick books that tell a story that hasn't been told before, and
Yeah.
telling the story through the eyes of these two sisters. And, I really don't even know. We did a lot about Leonardo in our classes and stuff, but they really don't know a whole lot, it seems like to me. And I had a professor, Lasso, who goes over there every summer. She's brilliant, and that's her forte, is the Italian Renaissance. But it's amazing to me that and it just seems like even during this time of COVID, things have opened up even more, where we're really recognizing that we don't know the world history.
Right.
So to have you write this book is such a treat. I hope everybody is listening and will watch this and check out Leonardo Swans. And so it's in 30 languages. Wow.
Yeah.
What's the most obscure language that you're printed in?
What? That would be maybe, well, it's not obscure. I mean, Serbia isn't obscure. I'm
Well, Serbia is
apparently,
kind of different,
it's different. I'm apparently very big in Serbia. So, in fact, when I was in London, I was having dinner with these people, and they were asking me about my books and where am I published, and I mentioned Serbia, and I said I'm apparently quite popular in Serbia. Well, one of the guys was Serbian, and he said, "Oh, right, you can say anything because nobody knows about Serbia." So he calls his mother on his cell phone, and his mother says, "Oh my God, I'm reading her book right now."
Oh my goodness.
That was a great moment.
That is so very cool. Well, since, I've always been an international book club, I've always picked books that are set all over the world, but it wasn't until COVID or 2020 that I decided that I really address that we're an international book club and make specific international reads. And I think that's what has really made us jump in leaps and bounds. And when we were doing the Zoom meetings, people could come in from anywhere. Like one of my authors is from Japan, Suzanne Kamada, and she is absolutely almost at every meeting. She's got a class she does on this night, so it's a little harder this semester. But it's amazing to me that you got to do book signings in Italy. What parts
Oh,
of Italy
yeah.
did you go to?
I did the book tour was Milan, of course, because that's where all the press is and where all the big bookstores are. And so I did a lot of events in Milan, a lot of interviews in Milan. And then I also did Rome and Ferrara, because that's where the Este sisters are from. So I visited Ferrara and signed books there. And that was
at the beginning of your book, you have a map. I'm forgetting where exactly Ferrara is.
It's sort of between Florence and Milan. It's a amazing, beautifully preserved city, and unfortunately, most Americans miss it. But I have a kind of big announcement, which is that a tour company has contacted me. We were putting together the Leonardo Swans tour of Italy before the pandemic. And of course, pandemic, and that was that. But so they are offering a tour. I think it starts in 2024. They're offering a tour of Europe that follows all of the locations in the book, because
Oh,
these are all amazing places that Americans usually miss. Americans go to Rome and, kind of southern Italy, but they do go to Milan, but certainly not Ferrara and Mantua. I mean, I think Americans do go to Venice, but there's so many little places that are so, so special that are also in the book. So they are putting together that tour, and pretty soon I'll be able to announce it, like in my newsletter and on all my social media pages.
that's fantastic. My best friend who lives down the road does tours to Europe. And I've gone 3 times to Italy and Greece and a little bit into some other, just briefly in
Mm.
other countries. I've got to introduce you to Stephanie Chance, because she takes us to those places that nobody goes to.
Mm.
And I am, I just go, I never knew this existed. And it makes me ask myself, what else don't I know? So the more I read, the more I want to go, the more I want to go, the more I want to read, it works hand in hand. So how fascinating is that? Well, you be sure and get me all the information, because I'm sure there will be people that would, I know all of my art friends at University of Texas would be fascinated with that, because we
Yeah,
all
for
keep up
sure.
with each other. I'll pass it on. So keep me
Oh, please
posted on
do.
that.
Because
So
I also do, talks to schools and universities, women's.
I need to get you, her name is Elizabeth Lasso, and she's the head of the art history department at the University of Texas at Tyler. I need to connect you two. Then that way you could come stay with me. That'd be perfect. So let me see what I can do. Okay,
I
so
think we
you
have a
wrote,
question. We have
yeah,
a question.
let's get Jeffrey into the conversation,
No,
because
we have a question from
oh, Janet Oakley's up in Bellingham, Washington.
Yeah, so I'm really interested in your. I'm going to get the book because I write historical fiction too. But did Leonardo da Vinci die in France? Am I wrong?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so several years ago I went back to France. I was a student in France, and near the chateau near Chinon, France. He
Mhm.
died. He was under the patronage of Francis I.
Yes.
So I got to see the bed where he died in.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
This incredible, this place is famous for its gardens. And they're just,
I haven't been there, but the legend is that he died in the arms of King Francis, who adored him. I think that's probably apocryphal, but
I can't remember what they said. We were kind of allowed to just go through, but it was really something. I might even have a picture of it somewhere. I also have a picture, I believe, of his desk. Because every time I go abroad, I always look at writers' desks. I have one from,
Share it on our blog, and I'll post it. Okay.
yeah,
I'll look for it. It was a fun trip. And then I was in Florence in 1967 after the flood. So I was a student in Vichy and Clermont-Ferrand for about 6 months. And we had winter break. So during Christmas, we went down to Florence, and it was a month after the flood. And it was really, I don't think Leonardo has anything in Florence. Most of it is on Michelangelo, but it was devastating. Like the main place where the real David is, a lot of the sculptures that were in clay were ruined, and the mud was really high up in the plaza. The beautiful bronze doors had been damaged, and we felt so bad. You're supposed to barter with people. We didn't want to barter with them. We wanted to give them our money. But anyway, yeah, that I remember I'll look for the picture of the bed, and especially the writing desk. So I stayed in France, in Paris. I stayed around the corner from Victor Hugo. And that was very interesting because so I have a picture of his desk, but I like to do desks of all these famous people that write. So Charles Dickens would be one I'd like to get.
We need to see one of your desks, Karen.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I'm sitting at one right now. It's not really mine. I have a tendency to, right at the dining room table wherever I live. And I don't know,
Really?
I always have offices and desks and chairs and ergonomic this and ergonomic that, and I end up sitting at the dining room table. I don't know why, but that's where I really feel comfortable writing.
It's probably good light there too, you know, you
Yeah, I
always
think
think of the
so.
kitchen,
Yeah, there's
lots
light
of light.
coming in and I'm near the coffee.
That's
So,
important. I'm writing at
That's
my coffee table. I have to use an
oh, we
unit.
lost
Saying,
your
yeah,
there
I'm
you go.
saying I write at my coffee table. I have an Amazon book on top of the coffee table because my little dog wants to be in my lap. I never can get anything done because he wants to be in my lap. So I'm like this writing, but I write here and then I go to my desktop to finish things off. So, but I
Oh,
know that
man.
frenzy. I know it takes me forever to write historical fiction. My latest one, I'm into my third year, but I'm getting close because it's I write about Norway in World War II, and so
yeah,
just you have to have the facts right. Yeah, I'm sorry. You know, some people are flippant about the historical facts, but you have fictional people. I write fictional people with some real people, but they're in a space that people occupied. And I'm so fortunate this time. I have a 98-year-old friend who is in Bergen, and she lived right across from the U-boat. So she is telling me these minute
wow,
details.
That
What
is so cool.
like for it.
that's very special.
So, you know, it's a journey when you start going into whoever you're writing about. You just get so immersive into it, which is the fun part. But you got to get the writing done. So that's my job right
Yeah.
now.
It's a process. Karen, where did you get this interest in the art and art history? I mean, where's it coming from? What
Well,
were your
my
parents?
my undergraduate degree is in costume and theatrical design, so
Oh
I've
my
always been a visual
gosh.
person.
Oh, I didn't. You probably told me that and I've forgotten because
Probably
that's what
not. I mean, it's not. I don't know. It's not like I forgot it. You know, I think it's still kind of apparent in my writing.
yes.
When I was 11, I started designing and making my own clothes. I mean, you can't tell right now, but that was
I did that too. I did that
great
too.
passion. And I, my mother was not going to buy me the kind of things I wanted to wear when I was in high school. And so I thought, I'm just going to make this stuff. And so I did, and ended up, it actually was my first career was being a costume designer, stylist in film and television and for still photographs.
That is
Yeah.
wild. And
Yeah.
but New Orleans has kind of got, I mean, to me, it's if you just sip your coffee from a balcony anywhere, a story is playing out in front of you, you know?
Yeah.
It's built for that. And what you see people wear there is, you know, I had to write about Katrina because that happened, you know, in my last book, but I have been back there several times and I've had several things that I've seen that I just go, I got to put this in a book someday. Nobody had ever believed this. So you grew up with that. Now, when you were growing up in New Orleans, which part were you in outside of New Orleans or?
I know
Where,
I was born in the city, and eventually a little later my parents moved to Metairie, but I went to school in the city. I went to Dominican High School in the city and then Tulane in the city. And so our joke in our family was that my parents moved to the suburbs so we could have this lovely suburban childhood, and my brother and I both could not wait to get back in the city. By the time we were 10 years old, we had bus passes to get back in the city. So
oh,
my parents always thought that was so ironic.
it is so. And I know you're really good friends with Lorraine Dupree. Now, she's from New Orleans also. How did you two meet?
We don't know how it happened, but we think Lorraine somehow got on my newsletter email list, and I knew who she was, but so she wrote me an email saying, "You are too pretty to be an ink-stained wretch." Lorraine is
Oh,
hilarious.
for
And
those
so,
of you who don't know who Lorraine Dupree is, I owe her so much. I mean, she got me my film my entertainment agent. She has helped me on numerous things, but she is one of our authors, but she was a television writer and did all the major sitcoms of the 80s and 90s, including the episode of Who Shot JR on Dallas, which in Texas, that's like the holy grail of writing, is the episode of Who Shot JR on Dallas. So, and she's married also to an author, Carlton Eastlake. But anyway, I knew, we kind of know each other, but I didn't know how you met Lorraine.
well,
And
it was strictly through this email accident kind of. And so I wrote back to her and said, I know your books and your writing. I'd like to meet you. Next time I'm in New Orleans, I'll let you know. And she said, I live in California in Los Angeles. And I said, I live in California in Los Angeles. We figured out we were a couple of miles apart. And she said,
oh my gosh.
come over for a drink. And so I just got in my car and went up there, and
And that house. Oh my gosh. I mean,
yeah,
that
so
house is,
they're my
oh,
closest friends, and I actually lived with them in the pandemic. Again, accidentally, really too much of a long story, but I ended up spending the entire pandemic living with them, and they are the best people in the world.
they
And
are.
I spoke to them this morning, and sadly, Carl has COVID.
No.
Yeah, Lorraine
Oh.
somehow miraculously didn't get it. They went to all the same events together, and
So is he all isolated and everything from her
yeah,
now? And oh
yeah,
man, I hate to
yeah,
hear that. Oh, that's
yeah.
just so sad. Well, uh, everybody says COVID's over, but I know it's not, because my
Not
mother has it.
over.
Yeah, it's really
No.
not. So,
When I
well,
did that,
that's amazing.
yeah, when I did that lecture at the LA Country Club, they of course called me the next day and said, "We're so sorry to tell you, but one of the people you shook hands with last night and talked to has COVID." And so
Oh,
I didn't have it, but it's still everywhere apparently.
well, this is something we're going to be dealing with for a long time. So everybody has to, be careful. And if you talk to them before I do, you tell them I'm really thinking about them. I'm sorry to hear that. Is it not bad symptoms, I hope?
No, I mean, Carl just felt like he had a bad cold.
Yeah.
So I think he'll be fine. He's very healthy.
Yeah.
So we'll
Well,
see.
okay. Well, they're wonderful people. All these connections. And now you've got two more connections with Janet Oakley being here. She's an author from Bellingham, and Jeffrey here from Washington, D.C. He's got a wonderful new book that's going to be on our list this year.
Oh, okay.
And, but so you've got those books, and then you've written some other new ones, right? Correct. You've got one coming out now.
Well, I just finished one, and
Okay.
I'm just waiting to see what the initial feedback is on it.
Man, I'm dying to read it.
Well,
I really would love to read it. I
I'll
really
tell
would.
you. I'll tell you what it's about, because I'm
Okay.
so excited about it. It's actually about the Gabor sisters.
Oh my gosh.
And it's the part of their story that I think no one knows, because I didn't know. I knew they were Jewish, but I did not know that they were a Jewish family that barely escaped the Holocaust. I mean, barely, by a day. And their story of how they got to America is not really widely known, but it tells sort of like a thriller. And so my book starts in their early life, and it ends when they get to America, and they've got nothing, and they have to completely recreate themselves.
That is a story because I love old Hollywood, and I love
Yeah.
that. It's really funny you said that, because today on Facebook, I noticed that they have a Gabor sister, or I don't know if it's Ava or which one, but they have a page dedicated now to her as a group. And I thought,
Really?
wow, I haven't heard about the Gabor sisters since Green Acres, or,
Yeah.
or the old movies and all the marriages. And I thought, and now you're saying you've written a book about that. Wow. That's going to be that would be a great movie.
I think so
Oh, wouldn't
too.
that be a
Um,
great movie?
yeah.
I can't. Well, if you've got a manuscript I could read, I'd love to read it.
Well, let me check with my management and see if I can do that. But
I don't share them with anybody. I just would really, I love your writing. I love everything you do. And, possible next book club selection I'm
very
reading for
true.
2024. So, and I love the stories that have not been told. And I don't think anybody's written about them. Have they?
There have been some books, but they're kind of fan books. They're not
Yeah.
very, they're not well written, and they're really kind of written like publicity. They're quite tragic,
Yeah.
actually. So,
That's why
yeah.
I love the Elvis movie so much, because it told a story that I had not, you know, a perspective I hadn't heard. I grew up on Viva Las Vegas and, Blue Hawaii and all that stuff and drive-in movies and stuff. But and I knew he loved his mother, but hearing the story about where I've been to his house in Tupelo, you can literally step in it and do the splits and you're out the back door. That's
Right.
how small
Wow.
it is. But, and I knew about his, his influence from the, African-American music culture and Stax and all that. But, these stories are the ones that I prefer to pick. So, what has been the most surprising thing about this book that you've had happen that you didn't expect?
Well, I did not expect for one Italian person to ever read it, and it became a big bestseller in Italy, and that was the surprise of my life. And then, so I did the whole book tour in Italy, which was amazing.
Oh, I bet.
And then my publisher called me and said, "You've been nominated for the Premio Roma, which is like the biggest award in Italy for foreign fiction." And they said, "We're going to bring you over." And so
Oh my
they brought me
gosh.
over, and I was just on pins and needles. And we're on the way to the ceremony, and the publisher said, "Well, why are you nervous? You won." And I said, "What do you mean I won?" And they said, "You really think we would have brought you over here if you didn't win? You won."
Oh my gosh. What year was that? Do you remember?
2007.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That
Maybe
was a year before my
2008.
book came
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So that was the biggest surprise of my
Hmm.
my literary life, the biggest surprise.
Maybe there should be a book about you. Sounds
Well,
like you got some great stories.
yeah, I have I've toyed with writing a memoir, but maybe I'm just not ready. I don't really. You need a focus, if you're going to write a memoir, and I don't know what exactly that focus would be. So, but maybe
Well,
maybe I can figure it out.
I always feel like things are meant to happen when they happen, and I never, just like that award and you running into, this librarian at this place that was under renovations. I really feel like people are put in front of you to be. I mean, I still think it's amazing that you rode with this complete stranger to Texas, went to Graceland, stayed with my friends, and and they were just like, "When are you coming back again? What author are you going to bring next time?" And I've been
Yeah.
back since then, but
I was pretty sure you were not an axe murderer.
well, I hope not. That would be another story, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that'd be a good
The
one.
woman who runs the biggest book club in the
Yeah, is an axe
world is a serial killer. No, that's something that would never happen.
No.
So
There's your hook for a
tell
memoir.
us about. Go ahead, Jeffrey. What
I
were
was
you
going to
going
say, there's your hook for a memoir.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Have you ever had a stalker?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I've had stalkers. One was so scary that I took my website down. This was some years ago. I wouldn't be scared like that now, but at the time, you know, social media wasn't quite as horrible, and you know, with all this bickering and vindictiveness going on. Now I think I would just shrug and say, oh, you know, that's just that's how people are. But at the time it really scared me. You know, somebody trying to find out where I lived so that we could together go find out the truth about Cleopatra, because he or she was a Cleopatra in another life. I couldn't figure, I mean, it was very scary. So that's my worst stalker. I've had friendly stalkers, which is fun.
That's called fans.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's called fans. No, I had a stalker once that I'm pretty sure Tawana, did you meet Tawana? Remember that my executive,
So,
Tawana was with me at an art show. I had a woman come in and I'm pretty sure she had a knife and she was going to stab me. And I
God.
talked her out of it. And it was really scary. And then I found out when she left that she went looking for my house. And luckily
Oh,
I live in
wow.
a gated community, but that's when I took everything off Facebook that, you know, where people could find me, because,
Wow.
and I don't share, you know, any of that information. And I'm nobody. I mean, I'm really nobody, but this woman was really upset with me and I found out she was bipolar and it was a long
Kathy,
story.
Jeffrey has had his hand.
Okay, I can't see you guys. I don't know why this new Zoom only lets me see who's speaking, but Jeffrey, what is your question?
Well, I had a question. I'm really intrigued by the many stories you've written, Karen, and how you get inspiration. You mentioned, you know, getting the call from your high school chum and, you know, knocking on the door and speaking to the librarian. And I wonder, you know, with all this research you've done, with your education, such extensive knowledge, how do you choose from among all of that information, all of that rich material? How do you choose what your next book is going to be? Do you wait for divine inspiration? How do you do it?
It's the hardest thing. So I always have a few ideas going at the same time. And I try to look at the timing out in the world. Like, what are people interested in right now? What are people talking about now? You know, what's the climate? What would be the best received? And then I go in that direction. I mean, sometimes I buck that direction, and that usually turns out to be a mistake. But I do try to go in that direction, and I will tell you that it is the hardest thing. I will never live long enough to write all my ideas.
Yeah.
You know, people always say, don't you get writer's block? And I say, if you get writer's block, you're not a writer. I would love to stop writing at least sometimes, and I just cannot stop myself. That's why I do it. You know, it's a decently paying addiction, I think. You know.
Well, you're very good. You're very good at it. Thank you, Jeffrey. That was a wonderful insight. And there's just so many things about Karen that I want her to share, because that's why we do the week-long blog, so people can find out more about you. I think what happens is when we find more out about the author, the more we want to read their stories.
Of course.
So tell us about the next book. What's, you know,
Well, when I say I just finished it, I mean I just finished it and sent it off to my managers. So I know they love it. And so now we're in the kind of strategy mode of, okay, what do we do now? So that's where we are.
Okay. Well, what is your favorite artist? Do you have a favorite?
I really
like
don't. I mean, I like all periods for different reasons. And sometimes I like very busy, flamboyant art, and sometimes I like very, very quiet. I don't know if you've ever been to the Mark Rothko Chapel in Houston, but that's one of my favorite
No,
places. It's just these big,
big.
depressing Rothkos everywhere, and you just sit in there and just kind of meditate on
I've
life.
seen, it online and things, and
Yeah,
but I've never, Houston is so far from me. It's hard to get down there and back in a day. I go down there sometimes. I did some book
yeah.
signings down there, but I usually go, I'm a member of the Dallas Museum of Art. So I try to go to everything that they have up there. And my daughter lives in North Dallas now, so it makes it easy. But I find that I go through periods where, um, you know, people that I thought, oh, they're just so common and well known, like Van Gogh. And I just, all of a sudden, everything I'm seeing by him is touching me,
Mm.
from just all of his works. And I've gone to several shows on him, and I love the Impressionists, and I love Dolly, and that's, my daughter is a big fan. But what's the favorite museum that you've been to, especially in
Again,
Italy?
I mean, it's just so hard to
There's so
decide.
many
I-
great
there's
places.
so many. I mean, I love the Italian Renaissance wing of the Louvre. That's where you can see paintings of the Este sisters, busts of Beatrice. Everybody just zips by all of these masterpieces of the Renaissance, and they run over to the Mona Lisa and look at that, and they miss this amazing hallway of great masterpieces. So it's hard to say which. I mean, gosh, I don't.
As much as I
Honestly,
love,
you know what? I have a favorite museum,
okay,
and it's the new Acropolis Museum in Athens. It is
really?
a monument to beauty. It is a glorious museum. It is so well laid out. The architecture is so beautiful. And like I said, I'm an ancient world fanatic. So, but I couldn't go there enough. I just really loved it.
I
I've been many
Greece
times now.
was a big surprise to me because I always wanted to go to Italy. I always wanted to go to Paris. I always wanted to go to, France and England. But Greece was it. It's just, I don't even know how to. It was fantastic. The people were great, but well, how
Kathy, you
I
need
didn't.
to read Stealing Athena if you loved Greece, because
Yeah,
I don't want to say it's a lesson in Greek history, because I think that diminishes the drama of the book and the narrative, which is pretty
I
exciting.
have it. I've got, and I've got to read it. Okay, I'm going to get it back out, and yeah, I will definitely do that. And so we've got this new book. Hopefully, do you think it'll be out in 2024?
I'm going to push for that. One thing that's happening in publishing is they're still so backed up from the pandemic, that they're holding books for years now and saying, this will come out in 2025. And that's just too far away as far as I'm concerned. So,
I kind of held my book back because I saw how people were struggling with
yeah,
their books, and books that normally would be just taking off like rockets, but it's starting to pick back up. So
I think
I'm
so.
very hopeful that, this will resolve itself in time. And I'm looking forward to hearing about this trip. I can't imagine what it would cost if you're going all over Europe, but I've never bought a lottery ticket, but maybe it's time I should buy one. So anyway, it sounds phenomenal, and I know a lot of people that would probably love to go on it.
Well,
So
I'm going
uh,
to keep you posted on all these things, and I'll
okay,
continue to post on the page, and,
okay. Great. Well, fantastic. Any last questions for many of y'all? And unless you talk, I can't see your hand. I don't know why this has changed for me, but does anybody have any last remarks?
Just to say how much I've enjoyed this conversation. Thank you.
oh, thank you for joining us.
Oh,
Yeah, I
thank
enjoyed the
you.
conversation too. And I'm going to get the book because I'm definitely fascinated by the two women. And I have to leave because I have chorale and I have to eat dinner.
Yep.
So
All
I
right,
sing in
well,
I sing in a chorale. So
I can't wait for the next book. I think the Gabor sisters, it's such a fascinating topic. I just,
Well,
great.
there's always been a lot to them that was never said.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
it was this,
Yeah.
they had, this illusion
The
that they
persona.
always kept. And it was that era,
Yeah.
my
Well, they
mother.
were much deeper than that, much deeper. Zsa Zsa spoke 6 languages. I'll just leave you with that. I mean,
Oh,
They
this is
were-
gonna be so good.
they
I
were
can't
amazing women.
hardly wait, Karen. I can't wait. Well, thank you for coming on tonight. And for everybody out there, doesn't matter when you read it, you've got to read Leonardo Swans and all of Karen's books. And she has a wonderful banner that I wanted to put up, but I can't, it won't let me download it. So if you
Yeah.
can share it on the blog so everybody can see all of your beautiful book
Okay.
covers, because they are amazing. And we'll be keeping up with you, Karen, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that this will be the year that you can come to our annual book club convention. And just thank you so much for your time and your beautiful writing. It's just been a pleasure. Thank you.
Well, my pleasure too. And thank you, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day.
Valentine's
Happy
Day.
Valentine's, everybody.
happy
You just
Valentine's.
made my Valentine Day, that's for sure. Bye.
Thank you.
Love
Bye-bye.
Bye.
you all. Bye-bye, Karen. Bye-bye.
Bye.